Hello and welcome back to the 490 plus subscribers that have subscribed to this channel and helped me grow it. Today we'll be going through an overview of King of Fighters 2003, the introduction of the Ash Saga, and also the last Neo Geo King of Fighters game released on MVS or the AES home cartridge. This game came out and was published and produced by SNK Playmore way back in December 12th of 2003 in Japan. It was also then released by Ignition Entertainment for the PS2, and of course recently by the Hamster Corporation for the PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. And besides its release on the MVS and the arcades, the Neo Geo AES also released on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox physically, also released on the PlayStation Network and also the Xbox Live Network as well, on the Neo Geo Mini, the MVS X Unico, and the Nintendo Switch. This is the 10th game in the King of Fighters series, and also the start of the Tales of Ash saga, and it is canonical and part of a new storyline. And ironically, this being the 10th game in the King of Fighters series was also the last game coming out on Neo Geo MVS based hardware, and also one of the first games that was developed and published by SNK Playmore once they resurrected themselves. It's also known by a lot of fans as King of Fighters 10. Much like most of the games in the series, the game itself is pretty much still a team battle, 3 versus 3. But unlike most of the previous King of Fighters games, especially running on MVS hardware, this was surprising in that it actually had a tag shift mechanic where you could tag fighters in and out, much like the Versus series by Capcom, by either using BC or CD. Of course, with each King of Fighters game, besides the tag in and out swapping option, one of the pieces or mechanics that was introduced in this game is the leader system, where basically the first character will always be the leader, and the next two characters will be marked and indicated by orange life bars, and then the leader has a blue life bar. The leader will always have access to two stock supers, which is part of the leader desperation moves. There are, of course, some new characters added to this roster. Ash Crimson, who is now a leader of the new hero team. Duo Lon, who's also one of the new members of the hero team, along with Shen Wu. Tizok, who's also known as the Griffin from Garo Mark of the Wolves, enters the fray, along with Gato, another character from Mark of the Wolves. Malin is a member from the high school girls team, is new, and of course Kusanagi, which was one of the mid-boss characters from the NES Saga games. Makari Kagura and is also a boss or sub-boss in this game, along with Adelheid Bernstein, who is the final boss and is Rugel Bernstein's son, and also lives with his sister Rose Bernstein in one of the basically aircraft carrier stages called the Sky Noah. If you face Chizaru or Kagura, you'll actually fight the main boss of the game, which is Mukai. As this game is part of canon and the 10th game in the official series, the new rosters have changed slightly. So the new hero team is Ash Crimson, a new character, along with Duo Lon and Shenwu. All three are brand new characters to the series. The Fatal Fury team is now just Terry Bogard, Joe Higashi, and Tizok. Art of Fighting team still sees Ryo Sakazaki, Robert Garcia, and Yuri Sakazaki, and Robart is back now to Fireball motions, and instead of a dragon punch, he now has a dragon uppercut using his legs. So that was a nice little thing to find out that they changed for him in this version. I was definitely not a fan of him as a charge character in the previous Nest saga. For the Ikari Warriors team, you still have Leona Hyder, Ralph Jones, and Clark Still. And for the women's fighting team, you've got King, Mai Shiranui, and now Blue Mary joins the fray. for the women's fighting team. The Korea Justice team still has Kim Kapwan and Chang Gohan, and Jun Hoon comes back. For the Outlaw team, you've got Ryuji Yamazaki, Billy Kane, and Gato. For the Japan team, you've got Benimaru Nikaido, Goro Diamond, and Shingo Yabuki. For the high school girls team, you've got Athena Asamiya, Hinako Shiju, and a new character, Malin. For the K team, you've got Kei, Maxima, and Whip. You do have some single entries into the game itself, such as Kyu Kusanagi and Yori Yagami, who is not part of any team. For a mid boss, Kunagi is in the game as well. He is hidden primarily in the Neo Geo MVS and AES systems, but playable on the home console ports. Chizuru Kagura and Maki Kagura are both hidden in the arcade versions, and Maki is actually not playable in the MVS AES versions. And then the bosses, depending on how you go through the game and the storyline, specifically on how you defeat Kusanagi, you'll either face Adelheid Bernstein, the son of Rugal Bernstein, or you'll fight Mukai, who is actually the true ending boss. Now, if you are editing and choosing your own teams, you would get the following. The three sacred treasures team is Kyo Kusanagi, Yori Yagami, and Chizuru Kagura. The original Japan team would be Kyo Kusanagi, Benimaru Nikaido, and Goro Diamond. Selecting the following will get you the 94 Women's Fighters team, King, Mai Shiranui, and Yuri Sakazaki. And the stages for this game are no longer assigned to specific teams, they are randomly chosen. The first stage is in Japan, which is part of a temple complex based in the city of Nara. For the next stage, you've got the Czech Republic, which takes place in the city of Arloj, in the city of Prague. In China, you're fighting on the rooftop in the city of Hong Kong. And in Korea, you are fighting alongside the Korean seaside. For Mexico, you're in the Mayan city of Chichen Itza in the Yucatan. In New Zealand, you'll be fighting next to the Glenbrook Railway. After that, you've got the mid-boss and boss stages. Facing Kusanagi, you'll be fighting in Egypt, in the city of Giza. After that, you've got the Sky Noah. Again, of course, this is depending on how well or how well you don't do against Adelheid, which I did not defeat him until my last character, so I ended up facing Adelheid in the Sky Noah. If you did better, you'd be able to face Mika Kagura and fight in the lava cave before facing Mukai in his cave. And with that out of the way, talking a bit about the gameplay, one of the nice things that you'll immediately see and feel when playing this game is the faster pace for this game itself. The action is a lot faster, and it makes for a really fast, snappy game. And also, especially with the tag mechanic, does make the games flow even smoother than ever. I do like the gameplay itself. Again, as I previously mentioned, I do love the fact that Robert Garcia, one of my favorite characters, is back to more of a fireball motion character versus a charge character, so I do enjoy that. Gameplay, as far as the tightness of the control, how each character plays, still remains a bar and a high point for pretty much most of the King of Fighters game series. As far as the graphics for both the sprites and backgrounds, especially with this game being the last of the MVS Hardware developed games, it is amazing that it took up to this point for them to be able to do the tag mechanics and still using, again, the very same hardware that was released in 1989. So it was nice to see SNK Playmore come back on its feet, and again with its somewhat ironic 10th game in the series, but the last game produced for the MVS, to finally be able to do a tag mechanic without any type of load time or separate rounds. I'm honestly not sure if this could have been done in the past, and they only waited. I know, of course, Capcom didn't really do any of their Versus games until they developed the CPS2 board. So if you think about it, again, most of the Capcom versus games is on a CPS2, whereas Street Fighter 2 was the only CPS1 game. So can you imagine what Capcom did, it could have done, or wouldn't have done if they only stuck with the CPS1 board? So they went from the CPS1, CPS2, and CPS3 in order to go through their different iterations of the fighting games, whereas SNK did it all in the same MVS board released from 1989. With that said, the sprites and animation are still very well done. They're fluid with no lag in the gameplay whatsoever. You're not waiting for a frame of animation to end before buffering into the next attack or combo. The characters move very fluidly. You feel and see every punch and hit. When it comes to the sounds and music, the sound effects and voices are still amazing as always. The music, honestly, it's definitely serviceable. Um, Unfortunately, nothing really stood out to me or really stood in mind that was new. There's definitely some remixes from older games brought into this series, into this particular game that still sound good. Just unfortunately, nothing really stood out like 90s King of Fighters 96, 2002, and some of the tracks in 2000 and 2001. And for me overall, this game is a solid 8.5, almost 9 out of 10. Mostly because celebrating the fact that this is the last MVS based King of Fighters game that was ever released. And to that end, if you are a physical collector, unfortunately, the only way you can pick this game up physically is either MVS, which is still fairly cheap, or the AES, and it was of course only released in Japan. So that said, the actual cost for the 2003 version of King of Fighters, if it's legit, is actually pretty high. You're looking at anywhere between, on average, if it's a legit copy, probably between 800 to $1,000 to $1,200 plus. There are quite a few bootlegs kind of floating about, mainly from France, and that still will run you anywhere between about €350 to €550. I haven't checked lately, so it might be even higher now. So that said, unfortunately, it is a little bit of a harder game to pick up physically. Digitally, however, is another matter. You can still pick it up on the Switch eShop, the Xbox, PlayStation Store, and I believe you can still pick it up on Windows, etc. Or, picking it up on the Neo Geo Mini, the Neo Geo Fight Stick, or the MVS Unico system, which is also one of my favorites. I did pick this up for the Switch as well. This is actually, again, mainly because you can play it portable and online as one of the main pieces. I think this is a wonderful swan song for the MVS hardware, for the King of Fighters series of games, and I am still glad that they are still releasing King of Fighters with the upcoming King of Fighters 15 in just 28 days. So, that said, I am very happy to be able to revisit this title again, play it through, and still, love and marvel how far these series of games have come on just one iteration of hardware. The next series of games, like King of Fighters 11 and 12, are based on other hardware. King of Fighters Neowave is the same. It's based on a Thomas Wave hardware, which of course is playable and on the PS2. Unfortunately, you can't pick it up in any other physical version. So hopefully, maybe in the far-flung future, Neo Geo, or should I say SNK Playmore, will re-release these maybe in a smaller, actual physical cartridge format, like I said in the past, things like a Neo Geo, but in the size of a original Genesis system. And with that said, everyone, I want to thank everybody for watching this overview. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I will have to dig through and see what I have to be able to play King of Fighters 11 or 12. I think I have 11. I definitely have 13 on PC and on the Xbox. So I'll try to record those.